What is up, everyone? We have the great Tom Swan on Skorch the Fears, episode 118. Good friend of mine. We've been part of masterminds together. Realized I haven't had you on Skorch the Fears yet. And I'm like, this guy, he definitely deserves to be on Skorch the Fears. He's a great guy, right? So I was like, hey, you want to come on tomorrow? Because yeah, I was like, he should come on, and I was just like, yeah. So I'm excited to have you on, my man.
Thanks for having me, dude. I'm super pumped for this. When you reached out, I was like, heck yeah, man. Let's do it.
Let's do it. So real quick for everyone, just give a quick description of just your real estate resume.
Sure.
Just resume in general, like entrepreneurship resume, just what you've done, what you are doing now, all that good stuff for the people that don't know who you are. And then, let's just start there and go from there.
Yeah. So, I mean, from an entrepreneurship standpoint, I started, I guess, about 10 years ago. I had a retail business back in Connecticut. And then I moved into real estate in 2017 and started getting into fix and flips. And then I moved across the country, continued with fix and flips. And then I graduated into AirBNBs. And I kind of, maybe not graduated is the right word, but transitioned into just a full-time Airbnb business where I was doing arbitrage for about 4 years. And then I sold that last year. And now my focus is solely on, for the time being, is solely on lending and business credit coaching.
Awesome. So out of those four different entrepreneurial journeys, just because I'm really curious, which one, what is making you land on credit coaching right now out of any of them, and lending, right? I have a feeling I know why. I know why lending. Lending is, once you have some money to lend out, or even other people's money to lend out, I think that's the sickest business ever. That's just so freaking easy. It's just as long as somebody has a deal. But credit coaching is interesting. We were just talking, I didn't even know you were doing that right now. So why lending and why credit coaching out of all the businesses you've been doing?
Well, lending, like you said.
I'm so sorry, I muted you. I meant to.
Oh, no worries. So lending, yes, it is easy, but you got to make, there's a lot of vetting that goes into it. You want to make sure that you have a good deal and a good operator that is running. I lend more on PML, shorter term PML deals. So fix and flips, 4 months or so. And I lend on those types of deals. So there is some vetting, I vet out the deals, but overall, once the money's out, it's a couple messages, just checking in with people, making sure that they're doing what they're supposed to be doing and the deal's going as it's supposed to. And then credit coaching, because I built what I built my Airbnb business on was credit. And that's how I launched after the retail business, or I'm sorry, I was still flipping at the same time that I launched the Airbnb business, but then being able to leverage capital from the banks made all the sense in the world. Cause when you know how to do it right, you can open up a ton of capital to work with, get 0% interest rates, and then you can scale quickly as long as you have a model in place where you are covering that 0% time frame. So that's where, I started that way, and then I just saw a major need for it over the last year. So it's kind of a story, but I started this program a year ago, and then I kind of put it on hold because I was planning on buying my parents' business back in Connecticut. And then that kind of fell through. So I shifted back to credit because there's just a major need for the credit coaching. And a lot of people, I see a lot of people out there, quote unquote, coaching on credit, but what they're really doing is just going after low hanging fruit. Just about anybody, through a Google search, you can figure out how to open up $100K in capital, but doing upwards of $500,000, $600,000 at a clip and repeating that process every 6 months and turning it into an evergreen cycle to build a business off of, that's where you start getting really powerful. Like you gain a lot of power and strategy in that.
So we're definitely going to talk about that because I'm curious. You've already piqued my freaking interest, right? We're going to talk about it in like a second, but I also want to start with like what I normally start with on this podcast,
Sure.
which is just like fears starting off, right? There's all sorts of stuff that comes in
Yeah.
through like entrepreneurship, ups and downs, all that good stuff, right? So like when you were just starting out though, like what were your greatest fears when starting out, even in your first business, which I guess was the retail business,
Yeah.
but in any of your businesses really? Like I feel like it's a whole new thing when you have to start business like
Yeah.
over and over and over again, right? Or
Yes.
at least just different businesses. It's always like a fear. So
Well, for sure.
more about
And
that.
and yeah, like truthfully, starting over, like it's always scary, right? But part of it is I've learned now how to build a business properly, but in the other ventures, I was following the lead that I had learned growing up from my parents and other people in business, where it's like you got to do everything yourself, and so I was always
Right.
hiring bottom up, and I was ending up doing all the freaking work, versus now understanding what I didn't understand for many years is hiring top down. But to answer your question, the fear, I mean, dude, it's going broke. Like that's
Yeah.
the biggest thing. Like I'm not going to make any money. I'm going to go broke. And you know what? Like I've gone broke multiple times, and
Yeah.
it's not fun, but it's not as scary as you think it is. As long as you stay persistent and like figure it out as you go, going broke is not the end of the world. It's starting over more intelligently.
Hmm.
That
So when
was
we say
always my
going
biggest
broke, do we
fear.
mean like 0, 0, or do we mean like just we have like 30K in the bank? Like what is going broke? Like I've always thought about that too, where I would
Hmm.
be like, all right, I have to like survive, right? Like I
Right.
that's what I think of as like going broke,
Yeah.
right? Because if you're hitting zero, that's like really I don't even know what you do if you hit literally zero and like
Yeah.
everything. But like what does it mean to go broke? I don't know
Well,
if that's I'm
so
curious.
something that I've really studied and capitalized on is leverage, right? So, I mean, I've never like going broke, like being at zero. I can't say that's ever been the case, because I've always been in a position where, like, when my retail business was going down, I knew it was coming. It was inevitable. Like there was just no way out of it at that point. So
Right.
at that time, while the business was going down, while I still had money in the bank, I kind of doubled down and went into a fix and flip. And I bought my first flip. And so I took the capital that I had, and instead of it sounds shitty to say, but like instead of paying my vendors off, I was like, they can carry a balance for a little bit. And I did, and I paid a lot of interest on it, but I can carry a balance and not pay people off. Like I'm still making minimum payments. I'm not like skipping out on payments, but making minimum payments to get by. And then leveraging the flip in that case. Like I've always had figured out what the next step is, and I think that's the biggest thing, like for me, is just knowing, seeing the future and being real about it. Like I see too many people when they're going down, they're like, oh, I'm going to double down on my business, and and you should to a certain extent, but if it's like the writing's on the wall, then you got to pivot, and
How do you know when the writing's on the wall, right? Like I'm just
so
curious because I'll be honest, like I've been dealing with something where I separated with my business partner. So like I had a wholesaling business that was making a lot of freaking money.
yeah,
And now I have a wholesaling business that's making much less money. We're
yeah,
like breaking even for the past like 2 months. 2 months ago
okay,
is when where I destroyed. And breaking evens, that doesn't make me feel that bad.
yeah,
It sucks, but
yeah,
it's not like that big of a deal, right? Like I'll take breaking even, although I should be making way more money, or I feel like I
sure,
should be making more money.
yeah.
I guess it's like how many months is it where it's negative, or like how do you know when like it's like, hey, maybe I should make a pivot?
So so I've had this happen twice now, and So I'll tell you, in the retail business, it was a heating business. So it was the Northeast. I'm from Connecticut. So for those who don't know me, so that was where my original business was. It was in Connecticut, and that's a big oil dependent part of the country. So we did alternative energy heating, like wood stoves, fireplaces. Well, you're in Colorado, you know all about that stuff now.
Yeah.
But so it's alternative energy heating, but it's heavily seasonal and it's heavily dependent on harsh winters. Well, in 2014, we opened up, and in a very short time period, I was making a ton of money. Like, we almost went from opening a retail business, which I really don't recommend to anybody. But at the time, it was what I knew. So opening that, like, I was almost back in the black, because you have to lay out a shit ton of cash to get it up and running, right? So like, once I got up and running, I mean, I was just, it was a harsh winter, and we were doing really good. Never in history in the Northeast had there been 2 mild winters back to back, but 15 and 16 were 2 of the top 10 most mild winters on record. And so a business that's heavily dependent on harsh winters for cash flow, like 15, like we went up and then came down so fast. Like 15, it was like, you know, the numbers, I don't want to say they cut in half, but it was significantly less. And because it's just human nature. Like, when it's 60 degrees on New Year's, they're not thinking about alternative heating. They're thinking about, you know, like, hey, I can wear a t-shirt outside. You know what I mean? So like, they're spending their money elsewhere. And then I was like, no way, like, this has never happened, like that we had 2 back to back. So we'll be okay. Like, we made enough, I put enough away that we were going to survive. And then 16 was like the exact same thing. And so that I was just like, shit, man, we're going to go down. Like, the thing is that I made the mistake of laying out the majority of my capital opening up the business. And so I didn't have enough money to sustain the business over time, or like a downfall at that, like a downward trend at that point. Like, the entire industry in the Northeast took I think it was like a 60% downturn in those 2 years. So being a startup, it was just like, I'm a big numbers guy. So I was just projecting, and I'm like, you know, it's January, my lease is up in May, and by May, we're not going to be doing any business. Like, summers are slow. So I didn't have enough cash or cash flow to survive the summer. You know, I was just going to end up going broke anyway. So that was where I was just like, all right, I know it's coming. Like, I know we're not going to make it through this summer. It's just inevitable, right? And so in a retail business, like, cash is king. And also, like, that business, it was just such a low margin business. Like, you know, people in that business rarely get ahead. And it's just this constant struggle. Like, I know a lot of people in that business. But so that being said, like, that was the thing. It's always just a projection of cash flow. Like, a similar thing happened with Airbnb. Like, part of it was I went through a lawsuit that was a big determining factor on pivoting off of that business. But either way, I was planning on selling that business regardless. And the lawsuit was just kind of like, all right, that wiped out my cash on hand. So again, it became a cash flow problem.
Right. And
rather than trying to like go down with the ship, it's like, okay, time to pivot and, you know, adjust what I'm doing. In that case, I sold everything off, which left me cash heavy, but it stopped the bleeding of $50,000 a month in expenses.
Yeah. So, I get that.
Yeah.
I like that. So then you sold it off, and then you took that money. Now you're starting this credit coaching business. So let's talk about it, because you intrigued the hell out of me. How is it credit cards, or is it like literally like a loan from the bank for 500K? Like, what type of credit is it?
It's a combination. So I'm not a huge fan of loans because they come with high monthly payments. So unless you can like burn and turn that cash quickly, which is totally possible, then you got to have like a very strategic plan. If you're trying to keep it liquid and flexible, then a loan's not necessarily the best thing, but it's primarily credit cards and then lines of credit. And there's specific strategies to go about doing it that, you know, my spiel is that banks are in the business of lending, and there's 10,000 banks in the US that all want to lend to you. So you just need to strategically go about becoming a customer of as many banks as you can.
Gotcha. I tried the credit card route, and what happened to me, I'll just tell you my story, and it's
Sure.
probably because I suck at it, right? What happened to me is eventually, like I opened up, I like paid, I think it was like PCS or something to like build
Mhm.
my business credit, and this could be like a completely different thing. I paid them like 5 grand or 8 grand
Yep.
or some shit like that. Had me open up a bunch of credit cards. That made my credit go down instantly for
Mhm.
opening up all these credit cards immediately. Theoretically built the business credit, but then still didn't really like turn into like any money other than the credit cards,
Right.
right? So I definitely know that's not the same thing. But how do you turn a credit card into cash? Because that was always my thing where I'm like, I can get a 0% interest credit card. I applied for one and they gave me only $500. I was super fucking annoyed. I was like, come on now. Like, you gave me a $30,000. I have a $30,000 credit like or something with you. Like, what are you talking about?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
anyway, I don't know. Like if
So
somebody is like, yeah, let's start there.
all right. So we'll unpack that a little bit. So there's a lot of programs out there, and I'm finding more and more that
They're trash.
yes. Thank you for saying that. But yes, they're not the best. I'll say that. And a lot of it is people learn. It's really honestly, it's just people taking advantage of low hanging fruit. You know, it's if you don't know how to open up $100,000 in credit cards, a lot of people are out there doing that, and they're charging. Sometimes it's a fee for a program, or sometimes it's like a percentage, like 10 to 15% of whatever we get open for you. And you sign a power of attorney, and now I can go and sign on your behalf. And like, I'm just not really a fan of that method because it's not teaching you how to do it, for one. And for two, and also like to really do it and maximize what you're opening up. I can't do that for you because it's all about building relationships, right? Like we all know in business, it's all about relationships. It's the same with banking. Like you have to go and build these relationships. And so it's heavily relationship based, and I can't do that for you, but I could have you sign a power of attorney and go figure, like I just got to look at your profile and I can figure out what adjustments we need to make in order to go open up 100K. Like that's 100K is like child's play. But when you're talking about getting into like really big numbers, that's a combination of credit cards and lines of credit. But you got to have all your ducks in a row. And there's like 40 different things that banks are judging you on your credit profile. Like if you go on Credit Karma, there's the 6 main ones, which is like utilization, inquiries, derogatory marks, number of accounts, and then there's 2 other ones. I'm forgetting what they are off the top of my head, but those are like the 6 main categories. But then there's like so many other categories that you don't know about that are just little dings that they're constantly judging you on. That's where the soft pulls come in. If you look at your credit report, you'll see like a million soft pulls at any given time. They don't affect your credit, but banks are always checking on you. That's why they're checking on you to see if that's why you get all the junk mail. Like they do a soft pull on your credit, and then they send, if you got good credit, they'll send you, you'll get 50 freaking credit card offers from all different banks, right? And that's sort of like the junk. And you're like, how the hell are they getting my info? That's how they're doing it. So there's a process to it, and that's like that comes from the credit bureaus, and there's like secondary credit bureaus.
Gotcha. So, okay, so what type of interest rates do you get from I know how credit cards work. if it's usually you get the best, you get like 0% for like 12 months
Right.
most of the time, maybe a little bit longer, like 18 months.
Yeah.
There's probably some way to turn it into cash that Tom knows, and I have no idea. That you guys got to pay him to learn that one. I'm curious about the lines of credit. How
Yeah.
did those work? Like, how long do you get it for? Is it forever? Like, how
Yeah.
does that work?
Yeah, so a line of credit is I love lines of credit, but they're harder to get because it's like a credit card, but you have to go through basically a loan application as if you're going for a loan. So
Right.
a line of credit, but the beauty of a line of credit is that yes, one, it's forever, and two, until you shut it down or the bank shuts it down on you. But the beauty of a line of credit is you can literally just liquidate it straight into your bank account. It's
Right.
like cash. It's like another bank account just sitting there that you can pull from, and you're just going to pay an interest rate on it like a credit card. They have better interest rates. Like credit cards are ridiculous. You know, they're like
Yeah, they're just insane.
26%. It's like paying the mafia. But
Yeah.
so yeah, you can get like on credit cards, you get 0%, and you can do 0% for like 6, 12, 18 months. Most of them are like 6 or 12 months. And then some of
And
them
how about the lines of credit? Like typically, what type of interest rate are they giving you? And then like how long can you have it out for?
Yeah, so lines of credit, like it depends on the lender, but most banks lines of credit are like you can have it out forever. You're just paying interest on it. But the interest rates are better. It's usually like a prime plus 5 or 6 or something. So
Maybe
um
like 10 or 11% right now, something like that.
more like 12 to 13 right now because prime, well,
Yeah,
yeah, I mean prime is what's prime right now? I think prime's still in the sevens right now.
I have no idea. Prime
I
interest
know it was
rate.
eights. It was in the eights earlier in the year,
It's
but
8.5. I think it
yeah.
actually went up a
Okay.
little
So
bit.
yeah, you're going to be more like 12 to 14%, which is still
Okay.
way better than 26%. But you know, not that we love paying interest, but that's also annualized, right? So
Yeah. Is it paid monthly?
yeah,
Okay.
yeah. So
Gotcha.
you do lines of credit. It's still it's just like having a credit card, except you can leverage the line of credit to pay off a high interest credit card, or you can leverage it to lend it out. You know, if you can
Yeah.
lend the only thing is you don't get a 0% time period on the line of credit like you do with the credit card. So there's that trade-off, you know.
So what do you see? Because 12.5% interest, right? That's pretty high, right?
Right.
Like I couldn't necessarily, it would be hard to do buy and holds. I'm usually underwriting stuff at like 10% with like a
Right.
private money lender, like a normal human being, right?
Yeah.
So it could work for flips. I feel
Yeah.
like somebody who's flipping could definitely use this. Um, what do you feel like? What do you feel like would be like the ideal customer to be getting like lines of credit? The 0% is pretty cool, but like that's only for a certain amount of time,
Right.
right? Um, like it seems like it's usually for more short-term stuff,
Absolutely.
generally.
Yeah, the
Yeah,
way that I look at it is you can only really use it for three things: lending, fix and flip, and burr.
yeah,
So if you're doing anything else, it's not really going to work unless you're going to perpetually kick it down the road. Where the thing is like through aggressive strategic methods, you can repeat the process and create an evergreen process and repeat this like every 6 months. And it depends, like how you're structured, how you're basically, if you have a business partner or a spouse that you can lean on, you can double up. You know, if
right.
you're in a, you know, if you have a trusted business partner like that in the business and you're both on the LLC, you can leverage both of your credit. And if you're carrying debt, like there's strategies where you can, you know, it all starts like why you got a $500 credit card when you have a $30,000 card. There's many factors that could go into that, but my guess is you either have too many inquiries, you have a high balance on one of your personal cards,
I almost want to
or
just,
what's that?
I almost want to just bring up my credit card. I have like I'm not even like afraid of doing it. Let's see. Um, let's like almost bring it up. It says my credit age. That's a lie, but whatever.
What
It
are you
says like
looking
I
at?
owe
Credit
my credit
Karma?
card. Yeah, I am.
Credit Karma is very inaccurate. Just
Okay.
a heads up.
What's the
'Cause,
best
like,
one?
Credit Karma is still showing one of my scores at 606. I have an 850 across the board.
Where's the best one?
So there's a site called Identity IQ is hands down the best one. It's a paid service, or you can just go directly to the websites of the bureaus. So go to Experian's probably the easiest one, but you have to like set up an account, and you can do a free account, but you can pull a free report pretty much at any point on Experian, Equifax, or TransUnion.
Okay. Anyways, I was just like looking it up because you're just making because I haven't checked in a really long time.
Yeah.
So I was like, what am I at? Credit Karma thinks I'm at like a 780, which sounds about right. But like
It could be. It could be. I mean, just Credit Karma only
reasons it was giving was wrong for sure. Like it was saying my oldest credit card was 2 years. I'm like, that's not true. I've had a credit card since I was it for like the past decade.
But have you opened up a bunch of credit lines recently?
I have, which is really annoying.
So, that's why so your age is your average age of all your credit lines. So that could be down to 2 years.
That may be true then.
Your oldest credit card, like my oldest credit card is almost 20 years old, or credit line, I should say. But averaged out, like my average age right now is 8 years.
Okay. So what type of lending do you feel like you can do with this? Like, is it like fix and flip lending basically? Is it like, that like what type of lending does I mean Gator stuff, I guess, but like what type of lending are you doing with this?
Yeah. So I mean, right now, like Gator, definitely like fix and flip. I lend. I'm only lending on 3 deals right now because they're higher level deals, but they're also very strong returns. They're 20 to 30% straight returns, not APR. So, so yeah, you can do that. But I mean, I like all of my deals are less than 4 months, and I mean, I lent out 200 grand. It's going to yield about 50K return in 4 months.
Nice.
And it's just a matter of vetting out the deals. So, I mean, you can do whatever, you can do anything. It's just, you have to make sure that your strategy is solid to get that money back before the 0% runs out.
Right.
And then, and then once you have that, even like a line of credit, you can, if you're paying 1% a month or 1.5% a month, and you're making, that's in 4 months, that's 6%, and you're getting a 20 to 30% return back. Like you factor that in. Obviously you want to make the straight 20, but if you have to pay some interest on it, then, but that's where like leveraging this stuff is.
It's like interesting. It'd be interesting. Like I am curious because it would be kind of fun to open up. Like I have plenty of fix and flip friends that I trust.
Yeah.
Right. I don't have fucking money. I do have money I could give them, but it's annoying to use my own money.
Sure.
Right. It would be cool to just give them like this stuff. The thing is like to get like those returns, a lot of times they're willing to give me like 20%, but then I have to not have them make payments. Right.
Right.
That's the harder thing.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, and that's the thing on PML. It's more like it's a straight 20 when the deal's done. So, but also you factor in. I'm very aggressive. Aggressive is the word I like to use. I don't know what the right word is. It might be different than aggressive, but I wait. If you're gonna go late, my late fees are very like heavy. So, like on one of them, it's $500 a day.
Right.
So if you're gonna be late, like, just don't fuck up,
Yeah.
Because then you're going to lose your profit.
Yeah. Have you ever had to foreclose on a property?
Not yet. I'm hoping I don't have to.
Yeah. Makes sense. I mean, you just got to make sure you'd be willing to almost do it at that point, or like just be willing to take it.
Loan to own,
Yeah.
And all those clauses are in place where, I'm, but also it's vetting out the operator. If they have it's not just the operator, but also like their construction team, and how much experience do they have, and if it's a connector bringing you a deal, like they better know their shit, you know? Like I've had connectors bring me deals and I'm like, how, like you shouldn't be in this business, you know, like just, you need to really learn some math and understand what is a good deal and what's not, you know, if you're 100% leveraged and you're planning your exit as a DSCR, that's not enticing
Right.
for a lender.
Right. I got you. What so how does the program work? Do you do I don't know if you want to give out the price for the program, but like I'm almost interested. I kind of want to be a part of it because I'm thinking like, ooh, I could like if I could get 500K, I could 100% like just give that out to a bunch of my fix and flip friends, and I know I could underwrite their deals in like seconds and be like, that's
Yeah.
a good deal. And
Yeah.
then
Yeah.
like so
Yeah.
I'm curious, do you know like how much is it an upfront fee? Do you do it like a percentage of whatever you get approved for? How do you do it?
No, I do a one-time fee and it's on the higher end, but I mean right now it's going to increase, but because I'm still in the early stages of it, I've increased it's a $10,000 program right now.
Hmm.
That's going to increase as I continue to build out the program. Because it's not just the credit part. It's how, like, because not everybody's going to come from the communities that we're a part of.
Right.
And so a lot of people are coming in, they just don't have business experience and they want to get into business. I mean, similar to sub two, right? Like they're trying to learn how to build a business. Well, so it's not just the credit. It's like what I see a lot of people doing is it's just the credit and then they move on and they leave you with your credit killed because you're not doing the right things along the way to make sure that it's staying up. And so basically what you go through a different program and you end up like you did with a bunch of credit inquiries, like it kills your credit
It's
and you're
super annoying. I'm like, dude,
oh,
I had like a fucking 820 credit score, and now I can't get it back the fuck up there. I've
right.
been at like 780 forever, and I'm
Yeah.
like, you guys suck.
Yeah. Yeah.
like,
So
like my car payments were way more because of it. It was super annoying. But
yeah.
anyways,
Yeah, because it affects everything. It's I mean, if people have it, it can affect you getting jobs. Like if you're out in the W-2 world, like
mm,
you know, employers check your credit. So but the thing is that I don't take that up front anyway. Because what we have to do first is look at your credit. So I have to look at your report because almost everybody inevitably has some sort of fixing that needs to be done to structure you the right way. So I'm all about setting the foundation first because what, like, even if you have high utilization, what most of these companies do, and I've had experience with this too, and this is what drove me nuts to go down the rabbit hole myself, was they're just like, oh, well, you have high utilization. You got to pay that down before we can do anything. But I'm like, well, you already took my money. Can I have it back? And they're like, no.
right,
So,
right,
you know, so like that's frustrating. And so we got to set the foundation first. And that always inevitably requires some sort of fixing. The fix part, like I can either show you how to do it yourself, or most people who are already have established businesses are pretty busy and they don't want to do it. And we offer repair services. And they're very reasonably priced compared to what's on the market. But my whole thing is I guarantee results. And my goal, because what a lot of credit repair, and I'm going off on a tangent here, but I'll loop it back
sure,
around. But a lot of credit repair companies, what they do is they charge you 100, 200, 300 bucks a month, and they just kick out letters that don't, what's that?
they don't do anything.
Yes, they
I've
don't
been
work.
through this
Yeah,
already, where
they don't
like I
work.
was like, they did an okay job. Like the first company got me to like 720. I'm like, this is fucking annoying. Like,
Yeah,
what is this? Um, I went to a credit card company to help with that, and they're like, "Oh, by the way, did you know you had a missed payment of $0?" And I'm like,
yeah,
"What the fuck are you talking about? How could I
yeah,
have a missed payment of $0?" And they're like, "Well, technically, it's a couple cents." And I'm
uh-huh.
like, "I hate this.
Yeah,
I hate you people. What do you mean? Somebody
yeah.
charged 23 cents to my card?" And apparently, there was like an old credit card that I forgot about that I just missed a payment and I
It was
paid it.
probably
And
just like an interest collection after you paid it
it
off.
was so whack. I was
Yeah,
like, this is the worst thing ever because I just forgot about it.
yeah,
I thought I just like put it in drawer and never used it again. But
Yeah.
anyways, that's off my credit because it's been more than a year. But like I remember being like, "Can you guys get this off?" And they're like, "Yeah," and they just
Yeah.
didn't,
Yeah.
and they just
And that's
I
the
paid
thing.
it anyway.
It's that annoys me anyway, because I'm all about quality. So I don't like just getting monthly revenue or whatever, because that's what it is. They're building monthly recurring revenue, right? By the 100, 200, $300 a month. So I do a flat rate charge. It's generally either 3 months or 6 months, depending on the level of fix that's needed. If it's something super simple, like I'm working with somebody who has an 820 credit score and he's just got like 20 inquiries that are holding him back. So if we got to do that, like we can get that done in probably 1 to 2 months. So it's kind of like a la carte. But what I do is like, if you have like I'm working with a couple people who have bankruptcies, right? And so that takes a lot of work. Like there's a lot of like, one of my clients has like 20 charge off accounts. That doesn't go away overnight, but we can definitely get it. So what I do is a 6 months with a 6-month guarantee, where if we don't get it done in 6 months, we'll do the next 6 months for free. So we're not just, it's a one-time payment.
Right.
And the goal is not to be in the credit repair space. The goal is to be in the credit building space and teach you how to grow the credit. And then from there, it's like, this is get you off the ground with business credit. And then from there, like you might even be in a position where like PCS's program does work if it's done right. But the thing is that program is really designed for companies doing like, 2 million plus, and it's a long-term build, and you can build up like credit lines in the millions, but it's a long game and it takes time. Whereas if you like, most people want credit or capital now. And so it's a
Are
process.
you doing that right now? Are you trying to do the long-term game as well for people? Like, are you doing like the $1 million or like trying to get to people to the $1 million credit lines as well?
I'm like in full transparency, I'm not working with anyone at that level right now.
Right.
But it just takes establishing, like most everybody that I'm working with is looking for capital to start off with, or to get, like they've gotten off the ground, but they're struggling. And so opening up a ton of capital, if you're a fix and flipper, like cash is king. And a lot of people have a hard time finding PMLs, but also like if you find a killer deal and you need to throw 150 grand at it to lock it up, like I have that right now. Like I just opened up 200 grand in credit lines in the last 2 weeks.
Right.
And I'm in an active funding round myself right now. So, be like having access to that, and then you're not paying interest on that at 0%. Like I have a friend who he bought a fourplex in San Diego at $600K, did a $200,000 renovation, all on credit cards, and then refinanced. It was worth 1.4 million when they were done. They turned it into Airbnb. It's cash flowing $8,000 a month. They refinanced at 1.4. They pulled like 150 cash out of it, paid off the 800K, all 0%. And now they have a 1.4 million asset that's cash flowing $8,000 a month. And they are into it for no money.
Pretty cool.
It's awesome. And then on top of that, the kicker on that is at 3% cash back on 800K. That's a hell of a lot of rewards points. So, they travel, they get everything on travel points. That's like 20.
Well, you're selling the hell out of me. I'll tell you that. I'm like, I don't really like fix and flipping that much.
Yeah.
But like, even just having the ability to close on something, like I have lenders too, and I can do it. But it is just annoying to use my own money to like close on things.
Yeah.
It's just annoying, right? I have private money lenders, and that's fine and all of that too. But like, I don't know. I am the type of guy I'm much less anxious if it's my credit. Like if I'm just the guy who's being loaned to, it's like there's something about me losing bank's money and me fucking up my credit versus me losing like a relative's money or like something like that makes me way more anxious. That like
Yeah.
when like I'll do it
Yeah.
and I'll still make money, and I haven't lost anybody's money ever. But still, the idea of it makes me way more anxious than like me going bankrupt and losing all my money makes me less anxious than losing everybody else's money.
Absolutely. Absolutely, dude. And it's stressful. Like borrowing other people's money, especially like when you're new and don't have it. Like that's one thing when I'm lending, like one of the first questions I ask is like, what experience do you have? And if it's your first flip, like, sorry, I'm not the guy for you, because that's just
Right.
way too risky. You don't know what you don't know. You know, it could be the greatest deal in the world. I won't lend on it.
Right.
You know, because you don't know what you don't know. You haven't dealt with the contractors. Like, sorry, you know, it's too risky. But yeah, totally, to your point, man. Like, and let's be real, like worst case scenario, if you blow that money and it's on your credit, A, everything's fixable, and B, like the banks write it off. You know, like let's be
Right.
real. You're talking about $100 billion companies.
In
Like
the end, they don't give a fuck if
they
like,
don't.
you lose
It
it.
is.
Like,
They're
they don't
happy to
care.
write it off because it's a tax write.
How hard is it? So okay, curious if you've ever dealt with this,
Yeah.
right? Have you ever dealt with anyone who's like, all right, oh, also Luke's in the chat. What's up, Luke? Sorry, I haven't been seeing your chat stuff. I'll bring some of the stuff up he's asking. But like what if I'm just like so let's say I do it. I'm like, have you ever met like a lender? It's like I fucked up. I lent out on a credit line, lost it all. What do you do? Do you just immediately declare bankruptcy? Like how do you deal with that? Or like what's like the move if like let's just say like what's the worst case scenario as like a lender? Obviously you can get the property back in the end, right?
Right.
Do you like cover that loss? Like how like what do you like recommend in general? Like or like what have you done? Because if you can fix your credit, it doesn't really matter.
I mean, I hate to, I don't recommend it, but it is, it's a fact. It's reality. Like it's all fixable, and you can be like, I'm working with people in really shitty situations. Like they've really fucked up. And I'm like, dude, 6 months, you'll be clear. Like I'm very confident in my team's abilities that even the worst case scenario, very worst case, it's going to be 12 months. You know, a year from now, you'll be back in the 700s. You'll be opening up credit like crazy, and you'll be scaling your business. But to answer your question, like I'm talking to a friend of mine now who is, so I'll give you it's a real life example, right? She's going through a divorce and they have rental properties, and because of what's happening, they have decided to let them go, and they're trying to sell them. They're going to short sale one, but they're going to, you know, she's their personal house. She's like, I'm not making payments because he's not contributing anymore. And she's like, I'm not working 3 jobs to, you know, make these payments when this dickhead's not making his end of the bargain. So she's just going to let it go. And I'm like, it's tough, you know? So the answer is you let it go. If it's a credit card, if it's a line of credit or something like that, you can let it go. And what'll happen, the process is when you decide that you're not going to pay that debt, you stop making payments, and they're going to start hounding the shit out of you. And you're going to go 30, 60, 90, 120. Some of them go up to 180 days. So they'll go 6 months, and they'll just keep marking your credit as late. And every one of those marks is anywhere from 20 to 50 points on your credit. So you're going to take a big hit. When you see these like debt consolidation companies or like, you know, debt relief companies, this is exactly the process they tell you to do. Stop paying on the card. You say you've got $50,000 on a card. Stop paying that card. Let it go to collections. When it goes to collections, they charge off the account. So they sell that debt for 10 cents on the dollar, roughly. The collection company now is going to, the way the collection companies make, I don't know if you know this, but for people that don't know, the way that collection companies make their money is they buy that $50,000 for $5,000. And then they go to you and they go, hey, we'll settle this debt for $20,000. You're going to save $30,000 on this debt The credit card company got their $5,000 and they wrote off 45. The debt collectors make their money by settling the debt with you for less. So
Gotcha.
they're taking a huge risk. But the fact is, as soon as it goes to charge off, you are no longer liable for that debt. So I don't recommend being a douchebag, but you know, if it's a dire situation, like, you know, don't rack up a bunch of debt just to let it write off.
Like, yeah, just to be an
They'll
asshole.
keep track of that. Like, it will bite you eventually. But what they do is they sell that off at 10 cents on the dollar. They come after you. And the thing is when a creditor is a debt collector agency is coming after you, like, they're going to call and be like, hi, can I speak to Jonah, please? And, you know, instead of being like speaking, you're like, who is this? Right. And as soon as they like, just don't incriminate yourself, you know, if they're like,
just be like,
they have to, what's that?
Sorry, this is Bob. I think it's the wrong number.
Exactly. Just, you know, it's wrong number or whatever, but like, you know, they have to identify themselves. So if you're like, they're going to try to get you right out of the gate. But then if you just say like, hey, I'm not, you know, who is this? And they're like ABC collector company. You're like, sorry, wrong number, click. And they, you know, if you tell them to say like, you know, they'll keep hounding you, but you just don't answer. And like, you are not liable to that debt to them because it's been written off. Like, you're liable to the debt with Bank of America, or whoever it is, right? Bank of America has their own in-house collection team. So that's a little bit different. That was a bad example. Let's say Chase sells it off to ABC Collection Company. They're going to start hounding you. Chase already gave up on it and they just mark you in their system. Once you clear that, like, they'll still deep in their system, they'll still have a mark on you, but you can go back to them and get more credit. Like, not right away, but a couple of years down the road, you can go back to them and it's like starting over.
So let's say that happens. How long until you feel like you can get another credit card after that?
With Chase?
Just anybody.
Well, anybody right away.
So I could do that theoretically, and I can go back to Chase.
Yeah.
But let's say I could go back, but I could go to I could go to a different one, like Bank of America, and they might just give me a credit card anyways.
Well, you gotta clean up the account. Like, you got to get rid of that account off of your, like, there's ways to remove that account from your credit.
How long does that take to remove that account?
Depends on how bad it is.
Let's say 30,000.
No, I mean, the amount honestly doesn't matter. It's how bad the collection period was and the charge off. So a charge off account we can usually get rid of in we'll call it 3 to 6 months. Like, usually it's more on the 3 side, but depends on how bad it is. Like, if there's, because like some banks will not give up on it and they just keep nailing your credit. Like, I've seen reports where they've been in collections for like 3 years. And I'm like, why didn't they just charge it off? Usually they charge it off after like 6 months. But if you got 3 years of marks on your credit, like, it makes it more difficult because it's just essentially it's more verified in the system. And they're like, no, this is still a debt. Here's another whack, right? Like, it's still a debt next month. Here's another mark on your credit. Versus as soon as they charge it off, it stops marking your credit. And once it goes to charge off, like, charge-offs stay on your report for 7 years. So it's just like,
okay. I got to talk about something else because I'm getting devilish thoughts about like what I want to start doing. like we're opening up tons of credit cards and just not paying any of them. No, like, it's bad advice. But like you're like, I'm like, damn, I really could just screw over these banks. But we aren't going to do that, guys. And I'm not here to teach that. So here's an interesting one. So Luke said I should have set up all this credit stuff when I still had my engineering job. Is it helpful to have a W-2? Is that actually even for? I know that's for
totally
bank loans. Having a W-2 helps.
Well, yes and no. It'll help you. It will definitely help you. That helps you more from the loan side, because when you're going for business credit, so like a lot of this is no docs. So like most of this stuff, when you go into lines of credit, you have to submit documents. But when you're going like there's a lot of banks that do it no docs. So you can write in whatever you want. If they're like, what's your income on your business? if you're doing $50,000 a year, like you don't want to say $50,000 a year because that's where they're going to give you a $500 credit card. But if you say 500,000 or
See, like I've done that too. I always wondered, like, how the fuck would they ever know? I've already done that one. That one, I was like, I have no idea. Sorry, I have no idea that. Like, how would they ever know whether I did that or not? And that's how I got. Like, I have credit cards that are like $30,000, $50,000 limits. The most recent one, they gave me $500. I'm like, all right, you guys are ridiculous. I don't know why. Goddamn
so yeah, and there's ways to like go back at them. Like I just worked with one of my banks, and I also have some like inside contacts at some of the banks. But like I just worked with one of, and when you get the right person, they will go to bat for you. You know, like I had one bank that wanted to give me $1,000 card, and she knew right away, and she was just like, "It's a business card. Like, what the hell are they going to do with $1,000?" You know,
right.
and they ended up going up to it was 15 on that one, but I did 2 at the same time for 2 different LLCs, and it was 15 and 15. So I ended up getting 30 from that.
Nice.
But initially they wanted to give me like 1,000 on one and like 1,500 on the other, and I was like, no, like
Yeah.
we're not gonna play that game.
Question, and I don't know if you can answer this. You can tell me this is a secret or not. How do you turn a credit card into money? That I've always been confused by.
That is, it's a challenge. And I mean,
how do you actually use that to lend, right? Like I know how people use
you have to liquidate it in order to lend.
Right.
But yeah, so I mean, I guess like so one it's not really, I mean, you can find it out if you search hard enough on the internet, but like there's ways you can do it. It's just like a lot of people have used plastic or there's one, I think it's Melio. But those tend to like shut you down fairly quickly. There are strategies through Venmo that you can do. But a lot of those are like low.
Yeah, that's not going to be.
You can only spend like $500. If you're trying to liquidate $20,000, you're going to have 40 transactions, right? The easiest way is a merchant account, but you can't use your own merchant account. And if you set up, like I see people in the Gator group like recommend, they're like, oh, just open up a merchant account and then liquidate your cards, and like that's a fast track to get blacklisted for 7 years from all merchant accounts.
Right. How do you so what do you do with the credit cards versus, like, I understand with like the business lines of credit, but like what do you even do with the 0% interest credit cards? Is it just for your own business, like purchasing stuff on it?
I'm just liquidating and lending. So like one of the things is like through the funding round, I can't liquidate it until I'm done with the funding, because as soon as you liquidate it, you're showing debt, and you can't go back to that bank. So there's a whole sequence.
What I'm trying to understand,
the camera, but
more or less is when I give you that 10K and we get the 100K easy, am I actually going to be able to turn it into 100K cash that I could lend out? That's really what I'm asking.
Yes.
Okay.
But the process to really do this the right way, the process is like 3 to 6 months for the first round.
Okay.
Because it's work, dude. Like it's not like a get rich quick or,
How much work do I have to do if I'm super busy versus your team for that?
Again, it's like for opening the credit, the work that you need to do, it's not work really. It's going to banks and building relationships and opening accounts. Cause like, if you ever catch my comments in the group, people are like, what's the best bank to work with? Anytime somebody asks that, if I comment on it, it's always all of them. But some banks, like, dude, I've sat at the bank for 5 hours to have them open a fucking business checking account for me.
Do you have to like physically go to the bank?
Yeah, because you have to bring them documents, you have to bring them ID. Like, especially since COVID, they have like the know your customer rule. And so now, like, they want, because there was so much fraud during COVID that, you know, now they're like very strict about it. So you can't, I mean, some banks you can do online, but like most of them, you got to go do it in person. You only got to do it one time, but anytime you want to do like certain, especially like regional banks, like anytime you want to open a card, you got to go and do it in person. And then you got to go through, like, you got to put on your game face and go, unless you have a cool, like I go in, and if I get the right business banker in there, I'm like, I feel them out, you know? And sometimes they're just like towing the company line. And it's like, okay, I keep my game face on and just tell them what they want to hear, you know? And they're like, oh, what are you going to use the credit for? And I'm like, oh, it's just for, you know, working capital and whatever, right? Like, you tell them the bullshit that they want to hear, so you get the line. But when you get the right person, I'm like, you know, all of a sudden the wall comes down, and I'm like, all right, dude, here's what I'm really doing. How much can you help me with this? And that's where you build those inside contacts, because like one of them, I'm working with this guy, and I was like, listen, I'll bring you a shit ton of business if you help me get these lines. So every step of the way, he's like, all right, here's what they're going to want here, and here's how you get around it. Like, here's what you got to do. And he'll tell me exactly what they want, that bank wants. Right. And so it's playing a game, you know?
Interesting. So like, how much work would it require probably per week? You'd say, like, how many hours a week?
I mean, that's bank dependent and how close you are. Like, where I am, like, I moved back to Arizona, but now I'm in Maricopa, which is like half hour south of Phoenix, but all the banks are in fucking Phoenix. So I have to drive half hour.
I live in Denver, like downtown. Like,
yeah, so you're right. You got everything right near you.
Wherever the banks have to be here.
Yeah. It all depends on the bank, man. But like, I'd say like 2 to 4 hours a week.
And is it just like going into one bank a week or something like that?
Yeah, there's rules. You can't like just go bang open a bunch of bank accounts. You got to know the bank rules. So there's internal warning systems. There's the check system and the early warning systems in the banks. And if you go too quickly, they'll flag you, and then you can't do shit. You can't open anything for like, it's usually like 2 weeks. It's like they flag your account and then it goes away in 2 weeks. But
I'm super interested. I have a loan out right now for $87,000 that like, yeah. I'm like thinking like, man, this would have been so much better if I had just paid Tom 10,000. Then that would have, because I'll make like $7,000 or off of that in like 6 months or something like that.
Yeah,
which is cool. That's a good APR, right? But like, it would be pretty cool to just be like, you know what? Yeah, like I would have, like literally probably my first deal would have just paid you back probably, in like a flipping deal that I trust the person.
Yeah, and that's the thing. I mean, I'm following Pace's lead on what I'm doing with this. And essentially just doing a one-time payment. It's a higher ticket payment, but it's a lifetime membership.
And then like it's lifetime, and then like we just like we're homies and like we're talking about it, trying to figure it out.
Well, right. And the thing is like, again, it's like I mean, just like Sub 2, like I'm literally just modeling what Pace is doing with Sub 2. Like, it's not just getting credit, right? That's only the beginning of it. Then it's okay. How do you know, maybe not you necessarily, but you know, how do you build a lending business? Because like, dude, I get so many deals every day that I can't lend on. I get freaking, I'm sure you get endless.
I want to do a lending. I also want to do a lending business, to be real. I think lending is the best business, honestly, the best business model ever. Yeah. I think it's the only one I've found that I'm like, this actually, if you create this right, would be better than wholesaling.
Well, dude, so better. Here's how I look at it, right? There's 10,000 banks in the US, and what is their number one business?
Lending.
Exactly. So why not? And they have all the money in the world. So why not follow their model? Like, let's follow their lead. And dude, look at Bobby Castro, BHG Money, or whatever it is now, BHG Capital, whatever it is. But BHG was Bobby Castro's business until he sold it for $1 billion, right? Like, you build that, and like we can all do it. Like freaking.
I feel like once you make the relationships with the banks too, they'll like eventually give you rates where it's like I could actually use this to start buying like long-term holds, right?
Oh yeah.
Like probably over time. Like I know, like how long have you've been doing this pretty recently, right? Like it's only
Yeah,
been
I
like
mean, I started messing around with credit 5 years ago. That was when I
yeah,
did my first mass apply, literally knowing very, very little. I did very little research on it. I just had somebody give me a framework, and I opened up like 480K in a weekend. Now, that was majority was personal credit. So I don't recommend doing that because there's a much better strategy. And when you like, and in all fairness, that was personal between me. It was me and my wife and the business credit. So across really is like three different people or whatever you want to call it, right? Three different like lendees. So it was, it averages out to like 125 a person or whatever it was, or a group. So but when you do it right, dude, like you can open up so much. And it's like I was just talking to another couple this morning, and they're in business together, and they were like, yeah, we did pretty good on this round. We got 90K. And I was like, oh, dude, no, like that's it's good, right? Don't get me wrong. Like any capital is good. But I was like, bro, between you guys, like he gave me like a quick rundown of their situation. I was just like, dude, between you guys, I could probably push you upwards of $1 million.
right. Yeah. Yeah, man. Well, look, I got this loan. I want to get this loan back. You've already probably sold me. You probably sold people that are watching this right now because like I honestly, it's one of my goals is to start a lending business, right?
Yeah.
It's been one of them. It was also the reason why I made this. I lent out this money was to like try it out and get my feet wet,
Yeah.
right? Because I also have a ton of private money too, to be honest. And like I just don't have enough opportunities. I don't do fix and flips. I just don't do enough.
Yeah.
Where like I could probably start lending out money, right? And that would just be more fun. Or I think that would be more less work than like doing
totally. Like the thing is that it's just like anything. It's the front end work to get the foundation set, and that's where my whole thing is. And maybe like I don't know, who knows? Maybe it's just the niche that I'm focusing on, right? Because I see these guys like Fund and Grow is like, not to blast anybody, but Fund and Grow is probably one of the biggest companies in this space. And they literally are just going for low hanging fruit. They're not fixing your credit, and they're getting people $50,000 to $150,000, and then they move on to the next person because you're stuck for 2 years. If you do it right, like kudos to them. They built however big. I think they're like $100 million company now. But kudos to them for doing that. But I think they're missing a massive opportunity in doing this right. It's just what they're doing is what they are capable of doing in house versus. So like I can offer done for you service, but then you're restricted. Like I'll only be able to get you 100 to 150K, maybe a little bit more. Maybe we could go up to 200 or so, 250. But if you really want to maximize, and it's more of like a done with you type setup. And then real quick, just to expand on what's possible, like what I'm building with this is a community of lenders. And when we come together, like the Power Rangers, right? All of a sudden we can go for freaking, there are guys, like think about, like we just have to expand our vision, right? Think about, there's guys out there who are doing 20, $50 million commercial deals, right? And, and they need $500,000 or $1 million EMD. So if we pull, and they'll pay back 50%, in 30 days. On $1 million, you're getting, because on a $50 million deal, like what's $500,000, right? Like they're right. Like, sure, we're going to make $10 million on this deal. We'll give you $500,000.
And we all make like $100,000 each or something.
Exactly. In 30 days. Right. And you're getting like very quick turnaround. And so like pooling, but it takes, what I'm building is going to be a little bit slower paced, but when you get 30, right now I'm working with like 35 different people. And as you now make it 350 people and everybody's got $500,000 to lend, that's some serious. What's that?
Powerful.
Yeah, exactly. That's going to be a powerful.
How do we get it? How do we get it where everyone can lend 5 million each. Then like that's what I want to know. Is like how do we hit past the 500K? That's like what is that possible, or is like 500K kind of the limit for one person?
Yeah, it's just building the business to where you can open up those commercial trade lines. Once you open those, that's like what PCS is pushing, right? Like the commercial trade lines. When you get there and you can show, like, because the thing is, when you get to that point, like you have to be able to show the banks that you're doing this much volume. And like your PAYDEX score runs entirely different than your personal score. Part of the problem with PCS's program, just to be fully transparent and not trying to blast them, but part of the problem with it is what they don't tell people is you have to open up all these trade lines and pay, you're paying like $500-600 a month for a bunch of shit you don't need to have these trade lines, right? Why not build your business to a point where you can actually leverage shit that you have trade lines for, and you can actually, you need the stuff that's $600 a month, because a lot of people starting off don't have an extra, they already spent $5,000 for the program or whatever it is, and they don't have an extra $600 a month to keep paying. And what they do is they tell you like, you only need to do this for 3 months to build your PAYDEX score, right? But the fact is, the way the PAYDEX works is you have to continue to do that. If you have to continue those balances. The second you stop, it goes back to zero. So if you miss 1 month, your PAYDEX score goes back if you don't have a balance on anything. Because like what most people do is they buy all this shit for 3 or 4 months, and then they're like, I'm not going to buy this shit anymore. What's the next step? And their score goes back to zero, and now you're starting over.
Right. Super interesting stuff, my man. I definitely want to be part of the community. I want to get this loan back first, but then I'd be super interested. So consider me like a warm lead in like a 6-month period. Send me a text. We should also talk about, I don't know if you have an affiliate program yet, but I would affiliate it also because I think you're doing good stuff.
So I'm planning on it.
But I'm not going to get paid for any of that. What's going to happen. Luke's going to sign up, and I'm not going to get paid for any of that. So that's what's going to happen. But let me know.
Well, I'll tell you what. If you get me, I'm figuring out that part of it right now. But because it is still like an early on program. Like I know that it works, right? But I'm still in the process of building like the content for it. And like I should just start recording Zooms like Pace does and freaking put them on the back end. It's, but it's a little more, I don't want to go that route, but so anyways, like building all of that out. But what I was getting at is just like what I'm doing with people is if you refer, like right now I'm doing, to get it going, I'm doing a 20% referral commission. So, I'm probably going to, as I build the business, I'm probably going to have to reduce that down. Just
give me a way to do that, and I'll make content on it. I mean, I think you follow me on Instagram and the Facebooks and all that. Like I sell people's stuff. I sell love stuff. I sell all sorts of stuff. So just just let me know. I'm starting to build, I want to build different types of businesses. Like I really like the easy ones. I'm like, fuck buy and hold. Fuck doing the flip myself. Wholesaling is a hard one, but I'm so good at it now that like I'm like, fuck it, I'll always just do that because it's very low risk, and I just have been doing it for 4 years.
Right.
And then lending really attracts me, and affiliating really attracts me. I'm like, these 3 businesses are like, once it's going, it's just cash money. I feel like, wholesaling, it's like it's constant work. Fix and flipping, it's constant work. Buy and holding is fucking constant work. Anyways, I could get a whole thing into that. But like I own like a couple rentals. I'm like, this shit is not cash. Like it's cash flowing, but then like something breaks, and it's like, all right, I guess I'm not getting 300 a month now. So what the fuck was the point of all this? Right. I did my taxes, my Georgia rental. I'm like, wow, that was negative for the entire year because you were missing a tenant for 3 months. Okay, well.
And that's the thing. Like when I go back into real estate, and this is part of like what I want to do with this group as well, is build a syndicate and be able to build a fund off of it that we can buy businesses, and B, like, because businesses, when look at what Hormozy does, right? Like he literally just flips businesses. He's buying into these businesses with the sole purpose of exiting. They scale it up and then exit. And that's what you should be doing with business, right? Like like I'm working on a landscaping business here in Arizona right now because this guy's got a really good product. He just doesn't know how to run the business. And
Right.
I got talking with him. He did my backyard, and I was like, dude, like you really good product, but you're just not organized, and you need like he's trying to do everything himself. He's a younger guy, and so I got talking with him, and I was like, dude, let's partner on this. Let me come in, help you scale the business, systemize and scale, and then we'll sell it. And when you sell it, guess what? You can turn around and do it again, because he's like, then what am I going to do? I'm like, you could sell this thing for $100 million in like 5-6 years, and he's like, well, then what would I do? He's only 23. He's like, then what would I do? I'm like, fucking do it again. Like, just build it again,
That's funny. I like it.
But I mean,
like it.
so that, and then what I was getting at was the 4 asset classes I want to get into are apartments, industrial triple nets, mobile home and RV parks, and self-storage. Those, I mean, we know this is the four asset classes that are pretty much recession proof, and they're mailbox money. Like, so building a community of business owners who are ready to invest in that, like as those deals, because I mean, I see those, I get a lot of those deals too, and I just right now I'm just not in a position to act on them, but I keep it coming into my inbox, so it keeps it keeps dangling the carrot.
I like it, my man. So so we're getting to the end of the podcast.
Sure.
I like, we didn't talk about that much mindset stuff. I was much more interested in business credit stuff, to be honest. Like this is getting me going. This is giving me ideas.
Yeah.
Right. Because I've been wanting to start a lending business for a while, to be honest. Like I've been like I really want to learn also eventually like how you can get just straight loans from a business, like from the bank, that at like a rate where like actually I could take that and like give it out at like lengths of money where it's like doing it, or like a line of credit where it's more like 8 to 10% or something. But anyways, we'll all get there. But anywho, so getting back a little bit to the mindset stuff. So like if you, Tom, could go back to yourself right when you're starting, let's say the retail business. Like what would you say to yourself then, knowing everything that you know now?
Start first and foremost, hire top down. Hire an operator before you do anything. I mean with a retail, like it depends on where you're set, but if you're like, what I would say is don't open a fucking retail business.
Right. Yeah.
That's more first and foremost. Go after a business that has high margins and low overhead, which is not retail in any form. And then hire top down. Like, and you know what? Like, I think anybody listening to this podcast or who follows you especially has at least some sort of positive association with like the fear mindset, where essentially like play out the worst case scenario, write it out, just figure out what your worst case scenario is. And like, is it really that bad? And if you know what the worst case scenario is, okay, it's going broke. Like, generally that's going to be what it is. Like, I'm going to go broke. I'm not going to be able to feed my family. I'm not going to be able to put a roof over my head. Right. Those are kind of like the 3 main things if you have a family, but like, generally it all boils down to money. It's scared. And also like, if you have a W-2, don't leave the W-2 until you have enough income from your lending business or real estate business, whatever business you're going for. Don't leave that steady paycheck, but plan to exit that. But don't leave it prematurely, because until you're making enough money, like 1 to 2 times that monthly income in either passive income or active income from your side business.
Depends. I was crazy enough to like just do that also. It just depends on you, right?
That's true. I agree, because I did the same thing. And then I left, and I was just like, fuck this. I don't need this. And then I went out and I didn't have a choice but to figure it out. And now like it's crazy. There was a period where I did have a bout of I don't know, doubt, I guess, a bout of doubt. And and I applied to places and I can't even get like a basic job. Like everyone's like, nah, you don't have enough experience. I'm like, bro, I've built $1 million businesses. Like, what the fuck are you talking about? You know?
Yeah.
And they're just like, nah, I don't think you have the right experience for working at Bank of America. You know, I don't think you're ready to be a teller.
Right.
Like,
That's funny.
fuck you, man.
So what does hiring from top down look like? Like for wholesale, my audience is wholesale. I know you didn't never wholesaling was never your business, but like just in general, what does top down look like?
So if you're a visionary, well, okay, it depends if you're a visionary or an integrator.
We're visionaries. All three. The person who's asking this question and is a visionary also.
So like, hire an integrator.
Right.
And you don't like,
how much does that cost? How do you hire them? Like, what do you look for?
So I can't speak directly to wholesaling. You'd be a much better source for that. But what I will say, because I'm literally doing this right now with the credit business, because the first thing I did was hire an operator. So in all honesty, like, you can partner with somebody but if you don't want to give up equity in the business, like, dude, there's so many people who are great integrators who are in the Philippines, in South America, in Europe, like, you know, Slovenia, and like
you can hire a VA integrator. Is the answer.
Yeah.
Like, you'd be shocked. Like, Luke, I'm gonna say this because I know Tyler's not watching. So I haven't caught up with you, Tom, but like, I recently split up with my business partner. I gave him 50% of the business. I got 50% of his business too, and I did doing more than him, but like not by a crazy amount.
Yeah.
And then we split up. I was freaking out. I was like, fuck, it's been so nice having an integrator. And Luke, what I learned was my VA is like 90% as good as Tyler. Like, probably can do 90% of the things Tyler can, right? I just have to empower her to be like Tyler. Basically, that's my role, more or less. You find the right person who just figures things the freak out.
Yeah,
you can. I pay her $8 an hour, right?
Yeah,
which is high for a VA, but like, she is incredible. Like, if I was going broke, I would fire everyone and somehow find a way to keep her. At this point, literally, I'd be like, fuck it, I'm gonna like pay you in something like where you just stay.
Well, and that's the thing. What is she? In the Philippines?
She's in El Salvador. She's Salvadorian.
Oh, even better. So, yeah, like, so especially for real estate, I've seen. I can't speak from experience, but I've seen that like the Central America and South America VAs are A, they're on the same time zone. B, they're a lot more Americanized, and they tend to be. They're just as good. Like, they're just as good as anyone else. Like, my operators from the Philippines, but look up, like, if you're searching for them, look up people who specifically say they have experience with EOS. You know, like, that's a great start.
Interesting.
Like, that's EOS, because that's what traction and
I know it is. It's rocket fuel.
And traction. So, like, when they have that experience, that means automatically that they're systemized. Like, they're familiar with systemizing processes, at least from what I've seen. And that's like crucial, because as visionaries, we are not good at systems at all. Like, I am terrible. It's hard enough for, like, I look at Kajabi and my head explodes just thinking about putting this freaking course together. So I'm just hiring it all out. Uh-oh, you froze.
Oh, am I back?
Oh, okay, there you go. So one thing to your point where you said she's 90% as good as Tyler, this is something that Layla Horbozy talks about a lot. What if you hire another operator VA to be a tag team partner who is also 90% as good as Tyler, and now you're making 180% as good, you know?
Yeah. I have one who's like probably 50% as good as Tyler also. I have two admins. I call them admins. He's like 50% as good. I have one who's like, you're like a superstar. And then I have one who's like, you're pretty good. You're like decent.
But 90 and 50 is still more than 100.
Yeah, exactly. So like, honestly, I'm like, it's kind of one of the best things ever that we broke up, like, in that way, at least. Now it's just, So it's like, so yeah, anywho, it's just interesting. It's an interesting thought of like, all right, at least because they like deal with the system stuff all day,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And so it's just, at least I'm not doing that. I'm just doing the
Yeah.
sales, which is like what I'm the best at, right?
Right. And that's what you should be doing is do what you're good at and then delegate everything else out. Like that's what I'm doing right now. I mean, like build like I right before this call, I was interviewing people to build the Kajabi system for me
Right,
because I don't want to fucking do that. I'm not good at it. I tell everyone, I'm like, what you can do in a week will take me a year. Like no
right,
joke, because I have to learn everything first and foremost. Then I have to try to figure it out. And that's just like, I'd rather like stick a fork in my eye, like it's just
right,
brutal. Like it's just not how I'm geared. So I just hire everything out. And like the beautiful part of it is having that, like for me, my operators in the Philippines, I give her a task at 4 p.m. and I'm like, hey, I need to connect you with this guy who's handling, he's going to handle our credit repair part, and I need to connect you. She's handling all the systems. So I'm like, I need to connect you with, whoever's going to be building our system. And I'm like, okay, we need to do, like, we get on a call and I'm just like, all right, we need to do this, this, and this. I'm not even emailing her this list. She's making the list for me. And then she goes, and I wake up at 5 o'clock in the morning and there's 85 messages between not directed at me, and I'm like, oh my God, this is amazing. Like I wake up and go to the gym and my life is good. And like, I'm not stressing about this shit, like I'm stressing about it because I'm on a time crunch going to Orlando on Tuesday, but
yeah.
because I'm not going to be able to work on it for like 8 days, but
I like it a lot. I like what you're doing with the lending. I want to do that. It's a good lesson, I think.
yeah.
Like Jesus, my camera. I like it just, yeah, it decides it wants to start moving around randomly. But like I agree so much, like in the sense that I wish I had done that too. Like I'm never doing operations ever again. Like it's just not worth it. Like ever. It's just like I'm just so unhappy doing it.
Yeah.
Where if I can like just have someone create a system, like Luke, you just find a systems engineer is like the name of it, right?
Right.
That person's gonna cost more even in the Philippines and the VA stuff. Because I think I got lucky. I think it's luck if you find someone for $6 or $8 an hour who can build systems. I think that's
good.
Incredible.
Somebody who's good at that price.
That's like 4 years of just firing people. Like I fired 6 or 7 VAs before that person, right? You're gonna need to like pay somebody like $12 an hour or something like that, probably. And then you have someone who's good from the beginning, though, which honestly is way better. Trust me.
Yeah.
Like
and it's more still less than minimum wage in the U.S. or maybe not in the U.S., but in most states now.
No, in the U.S., I feel like almost everywhere. Like unless you're in Georgia or something, I don't fucking know.
Yeah, like, I think federal minimum wage is still like $8 or $9, but like most states are going to like 15 to 20
more than that.
Yeah.
So. All right, my man. It's been super freaking fun. I don't usually go over, so it means we've been doing a lot of good content. I haven't gone over, no, seriously, I haven't gone over an hour in like 6 or 8 months, I feel like. Because usually I'm just like, all right, I'm getting kind of bored, ready to move the fuck on. That was like super interesting. Like there's a lot of good stuff. I will eventually be a client because I want to build a lending business. Like the next businesses are like, I think it's just like lending. I'm always going to be doing wholesaling just because I'm so good at it at this point. I've spent so much time on it. And then owning multifamily are like the 3 businesses I actually want to do. But like lending is like the one where it's like, this is the coolest one. And affiliating. Affiliating is all affiliating and lending first because those are like you get money, a lot of money.
Yeah.
Way more quickly. So anywho, man, what you got any like? Thank you so much for coming on. Do you have any last words before I end this?
No. Well, yeah. I mean, all I would say is the program's going to be called Maximum Leverage, or it is called Maximum Leverage. I'm building it out now. I'll be marketing it soon. I'm just right now. It's all just word of mouth. So, but
people can pay you now, right? I'm pretty sure people can pay you now. So where should people reach out to you? IG? You have it?
Yeah, you can hit me on Instagram or Facebook. Just look Tom John Swan on anything. That's my handle pretty much everywhere. But yeah, hit me up. Full transparency, I'm still working on a merchant processor because when it's credit related, it's a high risk category. So I have multiple meetings tomorrow, but it's been kind of a bitch. Like I literally have people messaging me like,
We're just
how can I
Venmoing
pay
you
you right
10K or
now?
something.
What's that?
We got to Venmo you 10K or something like that.
Well, that's the thing. I'm going to get my account shut down if I do that too much. And
Right.
Venmo, I think, has restrictions. So I'm just
Yeah.
holding off right now. But the thing is too, again, it all starts with credit fixing. So I'm generally putting you into some sort of preliminary, like either you do it or our team will do it, and that's lower cost. That's like, depending on the timing, it's like 800 or 1,500 bucks, but flat rate, to get your credit report cleaned up, because that's the first key. Like if your credit report's not clean, you're just going to get $500 credit cards and get shut down at other banks.
Let's talk about
So
that. I might do that with you, like to just do the credit report stuff, just
yeah,
honestly, because like I'm thinking I want to do this probably in like 3 to 6 months,
yeah.
probably. And there's just a
Well,
lot
and
going on.
it takes time, man. So that's the thing. Like when people are saying, like, I'm not trying to be like the pushy salesman, but it's just like credit building. It's a long game, right? And so like even just like little fixes take 1 to 2 months to get the result. So it's like, the time is now, right? Like I always quote the Chinese proverb, right? The best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago. The next best time is
Yeah.
now.
Yeah. I
So
love it. Cool, man. So people should just reach out to you on IG if they want to give you money.
yeah, I'm happy to take it as soon as I can.
I love
Otherwise,
it.
I'm gonna get my accounts blown up.
Any last words?
Just, whatever you're planning on doing, my message of motivation is just whatever you're planning on doing. If you're thinking about doing it, like Hormozy says, if you don't see yourself doing it for a decade, don't do it for a day. And if whatever you're holding back on, like just push past the fear. I saw a quote today that said, if you don't take action on what scares you, then you're just going to continue staying in the same position. So like push past the scary and find people who are doing what you want to do. Like everything that you want to do has already been done. And so there's books on it. There's people actively doing it right now. Jonah, myself, like whatever it is that you're looking to do, just we're all human. Like we're all, just talk to us. Like we're happy to talk to people. And you'll never I'm rambling quotes here, but like you're never going to be criticized by somebody doing more than you.
Right.
For
I love it.
wanting to do more and be more.
I love it, my man. All right, well, guys, next week, Skorch the Fears, same time. I know I missed last week. I'm sorry. There was like some stuff going on. Like I just screwed up. Next week, we'll be having it. It'll be on Thursday. Hopefully, it'll be at the normal time. You guys will see the thing. Appreciate you, Tom. You're beast. Thank you so much for coming on. Skorch the Fears. Let's freaking go.